Bruh, where are you gonna buy your gun from?
Said he got a plug on the merch, what we sending through. Lately I've been looking at them primes like they minuscule. Ooh, hold on, gotta see it through. I might hold a sword or the Drake, I got different views. We can't even go out on the walk, we got different shoes. Told you I was supposed to...
Welcome back. This is part 5 in the So You Wanna Buy Your First Gun series, and this is the last video of the series. We're gonna talking about where you can buy that gun from. So you should have selected your gun, you should have went over gun storage options. Now we're gonna talk about where can you buy it from. Gun shows, gun ranges, gun stores, pawn shops, private sales, online retailers. We're gonna get into all of it. So before we go any further, make sure you like this video. Comment below where you bought your first gun or where you intend to buy your first gun. We'll see if that changes by the end of the video. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you know when the next video drops. Let's get into it. Let's kick it off with gun stores and ranges. Gun stores and ranges typically have medium-sized selections. Some pros are that they are locally owned and operated, so it makes it great to get to know the staff. They're familiar with the local laws. They know about the places around there that you can go. And so you can really have a one-on-one conversation with them to get some knowledge and some advice on the gun that you're about to purchase, which is great. As opposed to gun shows where you can also typically do that, but it's a lot louder and busier in there. So that's one of the big pros of a gun range or a gun store. In addition to that, at gun ranges in particular, you can shoot the floor model of that gun. Now, if you've been keeping up with this video series, and if you haven't, shame on you, go back through, watch them all. But if you've been keeping up with this video series, in part 3, we talked about selecting the gun. So you should have already chosen 3 to 4 guns, shot them all, did your comparisons, and decided that way. If you have not, and you find yourself at a gun range about to buy a gun, make sure you shoot the floor rental model before you actually make your final purchase. And at some gun ranges, they'll even sell you the rental model if that's the last one they have, and at least you will have shot it a few times to know that it is functioning properly. The only real con of a gun store or range is that some of them will have smaller selections. Okay, let's get into the next one, and one of my personal favorites, gun shows. And before we even get into that, if y'all want to see what a gun show typically looks like, check out some of my previous videos. I did some here in, I believe, Fort Worth and Mesquite, Texas. And I love gun shows. What are the pros of a gun show? First and foremost, there's a massive selection. They have retailers typically from all over the state will come into the gun shows if they're in a busier area like DFW, where I currently reside, and the prices are negotiable. A lot of people price match, a lot of people negotiate, so you can really find a deal on a great gun at a gun show. All right, what are the other pros of gun shows? Ammo, accessories, holsters. You want it, they got it at the gun show, especially if you're in a major city like Dallas or any other major city across America. They're going to have a nice selection at the gun show. They also have a lot of people that are knowledgeable about guns, but one caveat to that is these are salespeople, so they're trying to sell you the guns that's on their table. So if you let them tell it, every gun they've got is the next best thing. So make sure that you do your research, know what questions to ask before you get there, and really lock in on what it is that you want before you even step in the gun show. Okay, let's get into the cons of the gun shows. You will not be able to shoot them ahead of time. You're just gonna have to buy it as is. Typically gun shows are very busy also, so it might be a little bit hard to here and there. And last but not least, sometimes their selection is limited to what you see on the table. So if you're trying to get it from that particular retailer, they've got a good price, whatever it is, the floor model may be the one that you're buying. So just know that it's typically going to be handled by quite a few customers, especially if you come in there later in the afternoon. People have already got it, dry fired it, done different things to it. So just keep that in mind before you buy. Next up, pawn shops. Now, pawn shops have a really unique selection, and typically from shop to shop, you'll find all different kind of cool, unique guns. Especially if you're looking for like an older gun or something that's been discontinued, you can find them typically somewhere at a pawn shop. With that being said, a lot of the pawn shops have negotiable prices and cheaper prices overall, but make sure you know your information before you step foot in the door, because some pawn shops will try and sell you a thoroughly used beat up gun for the price of a new gun, and that's no bueno. So make sure you know about the prices before you step foot in the door. What are the cons of a pawn shop? Typically all sales are final, so if you buy a defective gun, you might just be SOL. And in my case, I purchased my Walther PPKS, the original one I got. I'll link a video here now. I purchased that from a pawn shop, and the gun had a recall on it, which I wasn't aware at the time. They did not inform me, but after doing a little research after I purchased the gun, which, side note, do your research before you buy the gun. But after I purchased the gun, I did a little research on it, found out it had a recall, sent it in, and it was a nightmare. So I made a whole video on that, check it out. But that is something you have to be concerned about with pawn shops as well, is whether it's defective, whether there is a recall on it, or one that I haven't mentioned yet, what's the criminal history of the gun? You won't know, so ask yourself, do you want to buy at a pawn shop? That's something that only you can decide. Moving on, next up is private sales. Now, prices on private sales obviously may vary because it's from citizen to citizen, but the good thing about a private sale is if you work it out with the actual seller, you can take the gun to the range, probably with the seller right there with you, shoot it, make sure it's effective, which I highly recommend. Don't buy a defective gun off of somebody, but highly recommend take it to the range, shoot it, make sure it works properly. Also, one of the cons, you will not be able to know the criminal history. This person could have just shot someone the day before. You wouldn't know. So that is something that you have to be a little cautious of when going with a private sale. Personally, I wouldn't recommend them. But if you are going to do a private sale, one thing you can do is draft a contract with the date of sale, the make and model of the firearm, the serial number, and the price you paid, and sign that contract. If you want to make it super official, get it notarized, have 2 copies, one for the buyer, one for the seller, and put a clause in that contract, something to the effect that says everything that happened before the date of sale is the seller's responsibility, and everything that happened after the date of sale is the buyer's responsibility. And that is just one way to somewhat protect yourself if the gun was used in any criminal activity. Last but certainly not least are online retailers, which are just these massive warehouses full of guns that they sell. They can sell them online, and typically all the guns will be new. They will not have been handled by a bunch of customers like, say, at a gun show or a gun store, and the prices will vary. The prices are typically not as negotiable as they are at other means of purchasing that I mentioned earlier, but you can still get some pretty good prices just by shopping around at different online retailers. Now, you will not have the opportunity to handle the gun before you shoot it, so that is one con. And another con is you will typically have to pay an FFL transfer fee. Now, what is that? That is just a fee from when the online retailer sends it to your local gun store for them to do your background check, and they charge a fee for that. So you will have to pay an additional 40, 50, 60 bucks on top of the purchase price of your gun. Unless, of course, you're like me and you're lucky enough to live within driving distance of a massive online retailer, and you can just go pick it up yourself. You've made it. That was the final video in So You Want to Buy Your First Gun. And if you've made it through all 5, golf clap for you. Congratulations. Now, before we go any further, I want you to comment below what was your first gun or what will be your first gun. And also, where'd you buy it from or where will you be buying it from based on this video? Thank you very much for watching. We appreciate you. Make sure you like the video, comment those things, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and stay safe. Peace.